Also yesterday, it was the defensive linemen, defensive tackles out there doing their thing. Calijah Kancey of Pitt ran the fastest 40-yard dash ever since 2003. So, is it since 2003 or is it ever? I thought it was ever. I see both ever and since 2003. So, for a defensive tackle. 4.67 in the 40. And he broke the record set by Aaron Donald at 4.68. So, just barely, but it's 100th of a second. That's something, and this guy's moving. And now, look, the closer you are to the middle of the line of scrimmage, the less relevant straight line speed is. But again, if this is a guy who can move, it's better to have a guy who can move than a guy who can't move. And this guy can move even though he's 280 pounds.
Yeah, he's got the burst, he's got the get-off, and then, there's this sort of obvious comparison to make, as you just mentioned, the guy, Aaron Donald, another Pitt defensive tackle, was a little bit undersized, but I think the comparison kind of stops when you look at what the hardware was from Kancey versus what it was from Aaron Donald, because Kancey, ACC Defensive Player of the Year this year, but Aaron Donald was ACC Defensive Player of the Year, and then he got the Nagurski Trophy, the Bednarik Award, the Lombardi Award, that one trophy, all these different things that, kind of told you the potential of Aaron Donald, even though he's undersized, right? And now we've seen that he is one of the best defensive tackles in the history of the NFL. And if he retired tomorrow, he's a first ballot Hall of Famer. So you don't necessarily want to put that on a guy who's coming into the draft just because they sort of have some of the same measurables. But it will be interesting to see what he's able to do in the NFL.
Yeah, Aaron Donald slipped down to 13 in large part because of those questions about his size. And it was one of the conversations we had this week. God, which guy was it? There were so many of them on Tuesday. A Parcells devotee who pointed out, it was a great line, it's why they have weight classes in boxing. Big guys beat little guys. The bigger you are, the more likely you have to win. And it may have been Trent Baalke. Thank you very much. Somebody was paying attention to the interviews, not one of the people who was sitting right there during them, but somebody who was in the control room listening to them. I think it was Trent Baalke with one of the various Parcells-isms. And you're right. Hey, look, big, and that was the other line too. Fast guys get slower as the season goes on. Big guys don't get smaller. So size is a factor, but it's not determinative. If you're crossing guys off the list because they don't fit a certain height or weight, that's a mistake. You may be missing out on a guy who could be a first ballot Deion Sanders upper room Hall of Famer.
Yeah, well, I mean, and the other, funny thing about that draft for the Rams that sort of gets forgotten, they picked Greg Robinson out of Auburn at number 2, and then picked Aaron Donald at number 13. So, it kind of tells you something about the draft process sometimes.
Blake Bortles was picked before Aaron Donald. Now, no, Justin Gilbert. There are some great players that went before him. I mean, Mike Evans went before him. Sammy Watkins, that was a mistake by the Bills. They traded up. They could have stayed where they were and gotten Odell Beckham Jr. Beckham was taken right before Aaron Donald. Eric Ebron, who the Lions took instead of Donald, even though Ndamukong Suh was entering the last year of his contract. Nick Fairley was entering the last year of his contract. They had an obvious need at defensive tackle. What the hell were they thinking? So, anyway, you're right. Just because went to same school, roughly same size, ran a little bit faster, that doesn't mean he's going to be the next Aaron Donald. But little stupid things like that can be the difference maker when you're looking at one guy versus another when it comes down to the end. These are the next 2 guys on our list. Maybe something like that makes a difference for Kancey. All right. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.